The Brewhouse was created to capture and share with you the long history of the Genesee Brewery, but the brewery itself isn't half as interesting as the beer and the people who make it. Visit GeneseeBrewhouse.com. Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us. This is the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. Nice to have Coach Scott Fitch back in the on the panel. So, what do you got going this summer?
Camps, and camps. So, no, it'll be great. Great family time, too. So, I'm excited for it.
Very good. Carl Falk, co-hosting in for Mike Catalana. Pat Duffy's wearing a football jersey.
Well, yeah. I mean, there was all the news that Brett Favre was going to make a comeback. It turned out that his account was hacked on Instagram, and it wasn't true. But the Brett Favre rookie 1991 Atlanta Falcons jersey, one of the only non-Bills football jerseys I own.
Wow, it's sort of retro because, like, for the amount he played for Atlanta, I mean, that never would have come out if he hadn't done something subsequently.
He played none.
Nothing,
He played
right?
Nothing at all. Yeah, Glanville shipped him out of town because he was a drunk. By his own words, by the way. Favre's own words. Like,
not even allegedly.
Yeah, no, I was a drunk.
This is not an acquisition. Scott, we wanted to go back that virtually before the NBA playoffs began, very early in the process, you went and picked the Toronto Raptors to win. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
He knows a thing or two about hoops.
Yeah. So what tipped you off?
I loved the chemistry that they had. I loved how Leonard was really asserting himself as a superstar, and I felt like he could lead them. And I wasn't sold on some of the other teams. I mean, I still think they struggle if Golden State's healthy, but the Raptors, to me, were a little bit different than the other teams that they were playing against.
Is the idea that Golden State couldn't make it to the finish line with all these injuries a product of all the basketball they've played over the last few years, partially?
I think so, no question. I mean, you look at how many extra seasons they played. When they were sharing the stats about LeBron, I mean, LeBron's played like 5 extra seasons based on this postseason. So I definitely think it's something that they've got to take notice of, and somehow we got to monitor it.
It's almost more fun than the playoffs themselves.
Well, the media, it's always a bigger story what's going to happen next year, who's going where, who's going to be drafted, all of those things, than the games that are going on. So free agency's off and running, even though it's not legally off and running. Anthony Davis being traded to the Lakers, and apparently the Lakers are trying to rework the deal now to free up more cap room. They currently have, I believe, 4 players on their roster. 4. You need 5 still, right? Unless you go Gene Hackman.
I'll play for him.
You got it?
I would love
you might have to
on that
pass.
team. I would, that's
You might have to pass. Can you do that?
That's all I would do.
Kind of a Boston Celtics sympathize with me. What gets me is the way this whole thing has changed is that Boston has laid out a perfect plan and executed it perfectly. Planned, managed, did everything well. Mm-hmm. The Lakers were a picture of dysfunction.
Sure.
They fall into this thing, and now suddenly they're the favorites, and the Celtics absolutely don't know where they're going to be next.
I don't know where this idea that the Lakers are going to be fine is coming from. Like, great, you got AD and you got LeBron James, but you have 2 years. 2 years to make this work, and you mortgage the future. Let's not forget, too, they could have got the reigning finals MVP for half of what they gave up for Anthony Davis, who is not signing a long-term contract before the season starts. Are you out of your mind? Like, this could be an unmitigated disaster for the Los Angeles Lakers. We were actually just talking about this before we came on. I don't think the Celtics are in as bad shape as everyone thinks, because if we've learned one lesson from these massive free agent movements that we see every couple years in the offseason, there's going to be 3 out of the 5 teams that sign major talent that make huge mistakes. And then there are teams the year after that come in and swoop up those mistakes and make themselves better. Maybe the Celtics have a down year this season, but I don't think that Danny Ainge is dumb for what he's done, because he's not overextending himself and mortgaging 7 years down the line for a potential run where we don't know who's going to be good.
Is inmates running the asylum too harsh in terms of what's going on in the NBA, you think, right now?
Yeah, because I think it's agents running the asylum. I think there's a few key power brokers that are making all the moves, and if you're my guy and you're my guy, you guys are going to go together. And so I don't think it's the players as much as the key power agents that are doing all this.
And then the draft plays out, and I didn't know, you just told us today, you've coached Zion Williamson.
Yeah, pretty amazing.
That's why he's so good.
Yeah, right. Hard to be bad when you're coaching Zion, I'll say that. No, yeah, I mean, down at our USA camp, last October, I had him, along with a bunch of the other guys that were top of the country, and the kid was incredible, and I didn't really know much about him, to be honest with you, when we got there. But there was one play in particular that I didn't think he asserted himself on defense, and I got on him a little bit. And the next play, he blocked a shot that, I could have sworn was over the top of the backboard. I couldn't believe it. And it just opened my eyes as to how coachable he was, how he wants to be great, he has passion for the game, and he treats his teammates the right way. He's one of those kids that you really can get behind. So I just had an amazing experience with him.
It isn't usually the way it goes, but are you comfortable with the fact that years down the road, you're going to be able to say, I coached Zion Williamson, probably, and be prouder of that than he will be to say, I was coached by Scott Fitch?
What do you mean? No, I
just heard
He might invite you to the Hall of Fame induction.
he's there's no question. Yeah, he won't remember me, but the experience he gave me to allow him to coach him was really special.
Really cool. This is the Rochester Press Box. We are presented by the Genesee Brewhouse and Talking Football next. The Press Box is brought to you in part by Bay & Goodman Pizza, a local Rochester favorite. Corner of North Winton and Browncroft, Bay & Goodman Pizza. Welcome back. We have the Rochester Press Box presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. Carl, are we witnessing the dying throes of training camp here in Buffalo? Or are you in Rochester for Buffalo?
Yeah, it sure seems that way. Every year it seems to be diminished a little more. The last couple of years there hasn't been a night practice. A lot of people spend a lot of money to sponsor the camp, bring clients out. Sean McDermott does not care about the marketing aspect of the Buffalo Bills. His ideology is that if they win, people will come. And he doesn't care that the fans may be unhappy. You, Duffy, you go out there every day. It is not a fan-friendly experience now. It hasn't been since McDermott has been there. They practice almost as much on the backfield where there's incredibly limited seating. They never use the turf field where there's the most seating. No night practices. Every year it gets diminished. But I got to point out, the Carolina practices, that took away from this year's schedule as well.
Well, but I think it's less the Bills and more the NFL. Like 20 years ago when they show up in Rochester, right? The NFL needed training camp, and every year before that to prep fans for the season. And think about the names that used to sponsor training camp in Rochester. Your Kodaks, your Bausch and Lombs. Well, those businesses don't really exist anymore. There's not money to be made in the Rochester market. In the 20 years that they've been here, the NFL has become a year-round experience, so you don't need training camp to get fans excited to do this anymore. It was about money. And listen, it sucks. I like taking my kids. I would go out to Fredonia with my dad when I was a kid when they were out in Dunkirk there. Yes, it sucks that they're probably going to be gone in the next couple of years, but I don't know how upset you can be after you got 2 decades of the team being in your backyard.
The whole idea of taking the team and getting it away to prepare it, is that valid?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, I love going away. I still go away with our high school team. I think there's a team bonding that you just can't replicate when you're in your backyard. So I definitely think there is. And I think there's a feeling of us versus the world a little bit. You're in a secluded little thing, and that's all you're focused on. So I think there is value to it.
How do you watch training camp? You go there, and for somebody who's begins to get panicky and says, I got to get down there and see him because they might not be here much longer. What do you do? How do you go about it? Where do you maximize that experience?
For me, I try to get out there every day and just walk around and watch and listen and observe, because you'll catch certain things, interactions, players, coaches, positive, negative. You see body language. You can see those things. You can learn a lot if you just watch, and it's great. And if you're a fan, there's not a better autograph opportunity, a meet and greet opportunity than training camp.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if you're talking like a pure X's and O's standpoint, you're going to see the most, at least that you can use on a moving forward from your defensive backs and your linebackers. Like those 7-on-7 drills are the things that matter, minus what the quarterback's doing because they're working on things every day. Your offensive linemen aren't going to go live like they would in a game. Your running backs are not going to sacrifice their bodies in training camp. Those are what you need to watch to see how the team is doing well. If your defensive backs and linebackers are doing well, you're going to be okay. If not, you got some problems. And the fact that Nate Peterman looked as good as he did in camp last year was less a Nate Peterman is good and more a holy crap, our defensive seven on the back end not going to be so good.
That's a good place to end this discussion. We are the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. Like it or not is next. Here's the Press Box trivia question, brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390.
Today is all about belief. Right? It's not enough for me to believe it. It's not enough for Coach Hill or Coach Barstrom to believe it. You have to be the ones that believe that you are capable of running the way that we all know you are capable of, and that those negative thoughts that are coming into your head, you can acknowledge and push away. What's your response to them going to be? 5 more meters, 5 more meters, 5 more meters.
Here's the Press Box trivia answer, brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us. This is the Rochester Press Box. We're presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. Pat, like it or not, the Stanley Cup champion St. Louis Blues.
I like the fact that you got a first-time winner. I kind of draw a parallel between Buffalo and St. Louis because of all the bad luck that the Blues have had throughout their history in the playoffs, right? You have the 3 of the greatest players in NHL history on their roster at one time, in Hall and Gretzky and all those guys. You don't make it out of the second round. I'm happy for Ryan O'Reilly. I always liked Ryan O'Reilly as a player. You know, he was the Conn Smythe MVP. But I just hate these horrible takes from people that don't understand hockey that are killing the Sabres for what they did in the offseason. Like he was going to win the Conn Smythe playing for the Buffalo Sabres, right? There are players that are just good in certain circumstances. Ryan O'Reilly is a luxury piece. He's not a piece you want to pay that kind of money for to be a cornerstone of your franchise. I'm happy. I just don't want to hear all the crap from people that don't understand for the next couple of months.
It may be that this is already true in hockey, but it doesn't change the way that you think about things when this team was dead last in January and winds up the champion, you know?
I think it should change things. I mean, the NBA especially, teams tank all the time. The Sabres tanked for 2 years. It shows that if you tank, you're not going to get anything because who has tanked and really come out on top?
The Leafs?
What 67 was the last cup they've won.
Well, I'm saying you're on your way now. Like, listen, I get that the argument, if you get Marner under contract.
How did they win the Stanley Cup this year?
They lost in 7 games to the Stanley Cup runner-up. I mean,
in the first round.
But I'm saying you lose in 7 games to the team that gets there. Listen, I get that the Sabres experiment has gone not so well, but there are teams that have lost on purpose and succeeded in doing so. I mean, it's there. And here's the thing. You want to talk about the Blues not tanking? Yes, if any other NHL franchise has a 4th-string goalie that they loan to another team in the AHL that can show up, that wasn't starting for your AHL team at the beginning of the season, that shows up and goes on this crazy win streak after you change a coach, I say go for it. But if you don't have that, it might be a problem.
Like it or not, the Yankees get Encarnacion.
I don't like it because I think them getting Encarnacion seals the fate of Clint Frazier. Clint Frazier, I don't think, is a Yankee guy. I don't think he acts the way the Yankees want him to act. He's had troubles in the outfield, but that bat is special. And at 283, 11 home runs in limited time this year, 24 years old, that's too much to give up on. I think this seals his fate. He will be the piece they move to get pitching.
Okay. How about the idea? Let's assume that the idea that you're trading into your strength.
Well, it's another right-handed bat. It's another guy who is more of a DH than anything else, but they gave up nothing for him. So you bring in the American League home run leader for nothing, keep him away from your Red Sox.
We don't want him.
Really?
Oh, really? Yeah, if you don't have him, you don't want him.
Really? You sure about that?
I'm kind of sure.
All right.
I don't like the whole flap thing. Scott, stop it. Like him or not, or what to make of him, Kyrie Irving.
Yeah, I don't know. He's a tough one. Crazy talented, one of the best shot makers in the NBA. I think for me, it's just, is he a leader and can you win with him? And I feel like that he really hurt the Celtics chemistry this year. So I think he's hard to play with in a lot of ways. So do I like him? Yes. Do I want him on my team? I think I'd go another direction.
How do you balance it? Clearly, by that answer, you're saying that the lack of leadership is more important than the actual skill on the basketball court.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it depends on your team makeup, but I'm just such a chemistry guy. We talked about Toronto earlier. That was one of the reasons I like Toronto. I thought they had the best chemistry out there. So I'm just such a big chemistry guy, and I think he's a tough guy to have great chemistry with.
Yeah, I think the same thing could be said about the Blues. I think they won the Stanley Cup because there were intangibles in there that you couldn't put your finger on that made that team really a tough out.
Ryan O'Reilly.
Well, you got Tavares and you had like legitimate superstar players that were playing
on the same team that would play so horribly for half the year.
Yeah, but coach, I mean, you saw in Buffalo the difference a coach will make. They were playing man defense in Buffalo. Man, who plays man defense in the NHL? They don't play man defense in the NBA. Okay, I'm sorry.
We are the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. Unfinished Business is next. And now here's this week's MVP Experience Stat of the Week, brought to you by Sport Clips, where it's good to be a guy. No appointment ever needed.
Came now to Eichel. He floated one.
Power up with Dunkin's protein-filled Power Breakfast Sandwich and Egg White Bowl. They're kind of like this, but with food. Try the new Power Breakfast Sandwich and Egg White Dunkin' Bowl. America runs on Dunkin'.
Welcome back. Thanks for joining us. This is the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. Unfinished Business is brought to you by Dunkin'. America runs on Dunkin'. Start us off, Pat.
We were just talking about Bills training camp right around the corner, and although they're only going to be here for like 8 days doing practice in Rochester, people are excited. So the question is this. How ready are you to blame Josh Allen? Second year, and folks are very excited about him. He's the franchise quarterback. But when it comes to tools to work with, not looking great. You don't really have a number one wide receiver, and your number one running back is 184 years old, followed by a backup running back that's 183 years old. What I'm saying is this. There's a lot of expectation heaped on this kid's shoulders. A kid who the coaching staff, when they drafted him, admitted he was raw. In fact, he shouldn't have played a game last season. He ended up playing almost every game that he wasn't hurt, with the exception of the first half with Nate Peterman starting. Are you ready to sit through a couple more bumps and bruises with Josh Allen? Because this is how it usually goes with quarterbacks that the Bills draft. You have a couple of promising moments opening when they first start. J.P. Lossman, E.J. Manuel. And then when they get handed the reins full time and they have expectations on their shoulders, things don't go so well. I implore you, be patient with Josh Allen. The kid looks like he has the physical tools. He may need a little bit of time to learn what's going on, but he's not getting any help from the Bills front office when it comes to who he's playing with. Take a breath. Everyone be cool. We need a little bit of stability when it comes to the quarterback position.
What do
for
the
Buffalo
typical
Bills.
learning curve is on first to second year in a case like this?
Well, but it's weird. Like, there are some guys that make a huge jump. Patrick Mahomes, although he didn't play in the first one. And then there are guys that have that sophomore slump and take a massive step backwards. E.J. Manuel would be an example of that. J.P. Lossman you could use there too.
Scott.
Is the Raptors win good for the NBA? I think it is. You look at number one, it gets back to chemistry and blue-collar guys being successful, which I love. But then also you look at the globalization for the NBA. I mean, they're always trying to make their market huge in other countries, and this is only going to blow up in Canada. And then the second thing is, that I think brings attention to, and I think that the NBA is going to struggle to deal with a little bit, is load management. The Raptors sat Leonard a lot of the season. He only played in 60 regular season games, and he's healthy and wins the title at the end, where the Golden State Warriors, they lose Durant and Klay Thompson. So I think the load management is going to be a theme from this moving forward, and how the NBA handles it will be very interesting.
They talk about that as being an element of the free agency pursuit. It says that Toronto handled him like this. At the very least, if someone tries to pry him away from Toronto, they have to agree to the same set of rules.
No question. I mean, the way that everything went down this year, it's going to be really hard for Leonard to leave.
I've been a high school basketball official for a long time, much to the chagrin of some people, but it's something very dear to my heart. My father was in the military. My grandfathers were in the military, so that's something dear to my heart as well. Mike Pereira, the NFL rules analyst from Fox Television, has a program called Battlefields to Ballfields. They had their national fundraising golf tournament in Rochester this week. I got to spend some time with Mike Pereira, got to spend some time with some veterans who have benefited from it. What it is they pay for guys to get into officiating. There's a huge officiating shortage across the nation in all sports. Battlefields to Ballfields scholarships veterans and active military and gets them into officiating. It's a great project done by a great man.
You know what I've never seen, just as you speak about this, I've never seen a game maybe refereed by a man or a woman, for that matter, in a wheelchair or to that extent. Can it be done? Is that something maybe we're headed to?
I think basketball will be tough just with the speed of the game, but I think with 3 officials, there's a better chance probably, but maybe certain sports will be easier than other ones.
That's good.
We definitely need new officials. I'll say that. I mean, just no. Just kidding.
Well, this is your chance.
Just kidding.
This is your chance.
Yeah, right,
I've seen you
right.
two on the court together. How good is he?
Oh, he's really good.
I'm better than some.
We are the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. Unfinished Business, brought to you by Dunkin' America, runs on Dunkin'. Always great to have you, Scott. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Carl, appreciate it.
Thank you.
As always. Thank you for joining us. See you next week with the Rochester Press Box.